Welcome to the Business Blueprint, where entrepreneurs and business leaders learn how to work smarter, scale faster, and build better.
Hi, welcome to the Business Blueprint. My name is Clay Craby. I'm the marketing director at OnSharp and joined, as always, by Joe Sandine, the founder, president of OnSharp. How you doing, Joe?
Good. Good morning. How's it going?
Good. As we heard in the intro there, our show's really about helping give practical tips, having discussion that's beneficial for business owners, for entrepreneurs. If you just want to be more effective in your role at whatever line of work you're in, we're hoping that these conversations help you do that. And one of the things that we want to kind of kick things off with today is a little bit of a conversation about the difference between being busy and being productive. Because I think we've all had days where we get to the end of the day, we look around and say, what did I even do? Like, I was busy the whole time, and I don't know what I have to show for it. I think we can all fall into that trap. But Joe, so what is the difference between being just busy and active and actually productive?
Yeah, and I think you made the proper point there. What did I get? What did I actually accomplish? I think that's the difference between being busy versus being productive. Is what did you actually achieve? Being busy is just activity. You can get up every day and you can have a million items on your checklist and you can get a lot of things done. But then what's the value of what you got done and what's the priority of what you got done? So I think the big difference is, and I used to do this when I was younger, I used to be so proud, like, oh, I got a million things done today. But then when I look back at like what I really should have focused on today, what really would have moved the needle, what would have actually made my business proceed forward and to knock obstacles down. Like I avoided the things that I really should have done. There's a book called Eat That Frog, which kind of talks about like, do the hardest thing that you need to get done right away, first thing. We like to avoid the things that really need to get done. So I think the difference is just value. Like, are you doing things just to be busy and getting to the end of the day and like really not accomplishing anything that actually drives value, or are you choosing the right things? I mean, to me, it's like whether I get one thing done or 10 things done, as long as I got the most important thing done, I feel good about it. Or maybe I just made progress towards the most important thing. So it really comes down to value and prioritizing.
Yeah, I think I know I feel this in myself. If I got a big thing on the list that I really don't want to do, it's unpleasant, it's difficult, maybe I'm not even quite sure how to go about it yet, all those little things look a lot more attractive.
Oh yeah, like, and you'll start working on those, and you're like, okay, this is great.
Well, why do that thing when I can do 8 things
right
before that? And sometimes, I mean, that's the hard thing though, is sometimes those 8 things still have to get done.
Yeah, so then you got to delegate, and I think that's another thing that's hard for people to do is they think they got to do everything themselves, and they think like, oh, it's going to take me longer to delegate than it is to actually just do it myself. But I think if you really want to free yourself up to do what you should be doing. There's a concept in EOS. We've talked about that in previous shows with the traction model. As a leader whether you're highly paid or you're the owner of the business, whatever, your time's valuable. There's kind of this concept, don't do $25 an hour work. So you've got to look at everything you're doing and say, if I could delegate this to somebody else and I can work on things that only I uniquely, am qualified, or these are the things that I should focus on. Like that's a really big concept to try to stick with too, is like, am I doing the things that I really need to be doing that are worth my time, and then delegate the rest. I think one of the hardest things as a business owner or a leader is to learn how to delegate. And that's what traps a lot of businesses to not grow. And you kind of get stuck is you're not willing to delegate for whatever reason it is, but that's very important in the process too.
Now, what if you're not in that leadership position, or you're a solopreneur, or you don't have a team to delegate to? How do you prioritize and go about whatever tasks are coming in, whatever projects you're working on? What's your mindset when trying to figure out what to work on?
Again, before you just get up for the day or the week and start working, you have to prioritize. So I think you got to make a list of what needs to get done. You have to understand what getting that done unlocks for you, what value it provides for you, and then do proper prioritization. And again, I don't care if I get one thing off my list or 10, like it's not about the quantity. It's just about, for whatever time I spent today, did I truly work on the thing that's going to provide the most value for me? So, I think a lot of solopreneurs or early business owners that are working by themselves, I think you can get trapped working in the business instead of on the business. So you do all the things you got to do to keep up. It's kind of like being on a hamster wheel. You just keep running and you can't keep up, and you never get to a point where you can check certain things off the list that actually allow you to get out of that seat and start putting other people in those seats so you can grow the business and make it be more than a business of one. So at the end of the day, no matter how busy you are working in the business, you have to make room to work on the business and work on certain tasks that are going to help you delegate and elevate yourself to where you can be more of a leader of the business and not the one that's always in the trenches.
Yeah. And it's a real balancing game. I mean, you hear lots of different advice in this arena. You've got kind of the warnings against the tyranny of the urgent. Just because something is urgent and comes in right now doesn't mean I have to handle it right now necessarily. At the same time, you got people say, hey, if a task comes in and it's going to take less than 5 minutes to do it, just do it, get it done, and move on with life. It takes that long to write it down or to delegate it, just get it done. All this stuff is a balance. I think you really have to understand yourself, how you work, your personality, what your pitfalls are, how you're going to get pulled into that busyness trap, and then try to develop a system that works for you as an individual person.
Yeah, and I agree. There's certain things that you're going to do that aren't worth delegating. They're 2-minute tasks, whatever. That's fine. I mean, you can make room for that stuff. I don't think those are the things that are stopping you from doing what you really need to do.
Yeah.
But there's another book called The Best Yes. And I know my wife read it, and it was very transformational for her because she's a yes person. I can be that way too. Like, you don't want to say no to people. But every yes you say to one thing is a yes that you can't say to something else because you only have so much capacity. So it's all about being willing to say no to more things. Like, I'm sorry, I just don't have time for that, or that's not the best thing for me. And it can be hard when you have people that love you and that you work with, and you want to be helpful and you want to do things for them, but like, they might not be your best yes. And so I think as you mature and get older, you kind of learn like where to draw those lines of like, those are or are not the things that I should be working on. And it's okay to say no. Like, it's fine. Like, somebody else will find someone else to help them, or maybe you just help steer them in another direction, and it's not your best yes, because we only have so much capacity, right?
Right. Yeah. So how can you as a business leader start to recognize, or what are the signs that an individual, not necessarily yourself, could be yourself, but if a team, a person in your company is very busy but not actually moving things forward, what are some signs that they might recognize?
Yeah, I think in a business, a couple things can happen. I think one is when you look at your processes in the business, I think you might find you have some unnecessary steps, like things that don't even need to be done. There was a video of Elon Musk talking once that really hit me, and the concept was one of the worst things you can do is to optimize the thing that shouldn't exist in the first place. So I think every once in a while you got to look at your processes in the business and say, are these things even things we need to be doing in the process? Could we eliminate steps? Simplify, right? As a business grows, it gets more complicated. So you want to always be trying to simplify. Number two is the wrong person doing it. So you look at a process and who's doing what, and you have to start to make some tough choices of, hey, do we got the wrong guy or gal doing this one step? And should we really delegate, or should we hire someone to fill a certain role that can do some of these things so we can free up other people to do the things that they're uniquely good at? So those are two good examples, I think, in a business as you start looking at, when you start feeling stuck and you start feeling like, hey, we're not making the progress we used to make. I think those are two things you can do to try to create some unlock.
Yeah. And I think just from a real practical standpoint too, is if you're trying to focus on the things that really matter, a lot of times we're talking about a little bit larger projects, is just really break down those steps. I think a lot of it is internally our mind goes, I want these quick wins, or I want to feel like I'm making progress. And then this big kind of ethereal, we need to whatever, we need to ship this thing, or we need to put this campaign out there. It's just this big block that you can't wrap your head around. Mm-hmm. Break that down into the steps. So yeah, that you might be knocking off 5, 10, 30-minute tasks, but if they're moving towards that ultimate goal for the week, for the month, that's great.
Yeah, and I think that's what can keep people from attacking the things that they should be spending time on, is they've written down this really important task as too big of a task.
Yep.
Because they're like, I can't get this done in a day or a week. But it's still the most important thing. So then you really got to just say, what's the next right thing to do? What's the next couple things that we need to do to get this thing moving forward? Those kind of tie back to rocks in our world, in the EOS world. So what are the things that the company needs to achieve over the next 90 days? And again, as far as prioritizing for us, it's like, if we decided these are our rocks for the quarter, anything we're doing that is not driving towards these things, we have to say no to.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Well, that's first segment down. We're going to come back on the other side of the break, and we're going to look at some examples of businesses really kind of stepping on their own tail, some unforced errors and how you can avoid them in your business when we come back for the Business Blueprint. Well, welcome back to the show. All businesses make mistakes and things happen. You can't always control.
No.
There's a lot of variables going on in business, but sometimes businesses just do really stupid things. And they get in their own way and they fumble the ball. We got a lot of unforced errors. We got a few examples just to look at in recent past here, and then have a little bit of conversation of can you do something as a business owner, as a brand, to avoid screwing up so badly.
Well, so before you start on those, I mean, in today's world, it's way more costly too because of social media and how fast the message moves. If you would have made a mistake 30 years ago, like a lot of people
one guy doesn't come back and he tells his brother-in-law, and they don't shop there either.
Right.
But now you're on. I mean, you could be on the news.
Yeah.
Millions of views really quickly. So the first one we see this is fairly recent here. So Buc-ee's, this mecca of travel stops. We don't have one around here. Have you ever even been to one?
I've never heard of it.
Oh, really? Oh, it's
so.
super popular thing in the South. It is like a destination of a travel plaza.
Okay.
And people go there. They have a great time. Apparently, it's a really well-known, very respected brand. People are diehards for it. They've kind of stepped in it. They've put a lawsuit against a small family-owned gas station in a town called Beaver Creek, Ohio. And you live in Beaver Creek, you got a gas station, you got a Beaver logo. That's the law. I don't make the rules. They're getting sued because their Beaver logo was beaver, and they used red, and so they came down corporate lawsuit to try to get them to change their branding. And of course, that's blown up online. Now they look like this big bully instead of this lovable, mascot, this great store that people like to go to. So that was one that I just saw. And then I was on LinkedIn the other day, and this is small, but it's just so stupid. And it shows you how being not very thoughtful can spread farther. There was multiple posts that I kept seeing of this snapshot someone took in their Hilton hotel. And there's a couple water bottles. There's just those little, not even 20 ounce, those little Kirkland water bottles you get at Costco. And there's a little sign on it that says, hey, free water if you're a Hilton Honors member. And if not, it's $2.50 a piece. And I just thought, that's so stupid. Like, so that's a terrible perk. Like, that just makes you look, so you're some rewards member, and hey, here's 74 cents worth of freebies.
I think they're a quarter at Costco.
Yeah, I don't think they're very much at all, especially when you get them in a big pack. And then to say like, oh, hey, but you're going to have to pay for it. When there's this opportunity as a brand to do something so small, but that would be genuinely appreciated by people. Say, hey, here's a free bottle of water. Great. They could have done that, and they didn't. And then the last one I just saw, this is old news, but the person finally stepped down. The CEO in charge of the rebrand of Cracker Barrel, which had to be the biggest PR disaster
that got a lot of attention for sure.
In my entire life. They're going to be talking about New Coke, which is way before my time, and Cracker Barrel's rebrand for a long time, where they took out everything that Cracker Barrel was. It's like, hey, what if we just stopped doing all of that? Let's change the logo. Let's take all the antique store stuff off the walls and make it look like IHOP. And that went as well as you'd expect. That person finally stepped down. They stepped down yesterday. That was just this week. Yeah, they finally, I don't know why it took that long, but they finally stepped down. So there's just different things. There's small little things that you maybe get a little bit buzz on social media about. There's enormous things that tank your stock price and people mock you up and down the news, and it's a cultural event, and everything in between. So the question is, what can companies do? What can they ask themselves before they make decisions to help prevent things like this?
Yeah, good question. And like I said, we live in a world where information and news travels super fast, and everyone's got an opinion, and it's super easy to share that opinion and to create a lot of bad press if you make a bad decision. I mean, I think I have a lot of points that I want to make on this, but you have to ask yourself what could go wrong when you do something. So as a leadership team, you have to say, okay, well, we're thinking about doing X. What could go wrong if we fumble the ball and we don't do it right? And then you start to paint the picture of how risky of a decision it is, and then you'll decide, how much risk are you okay with and whatnot, and how you proceed. Number two, put yourself in the customer's shoes as you're making these decisions. So when you think of doing something, whether it's a marketing promotion or changing your business model or redoing your logo, whatever it is, at the end of the day, you're serving a customer. So you've always got to put yourself in the customer's shoes. I think what happens sometimes is businesses make decisions in a black box. A bunch of executives get together and they decide, hey, one of them thought this or that was a great idea, and they all are afraid maybe to disagree with each other, and then they don't talk to anyone else. They don't talk to their employees. They don't talk to the customer. They don't do a lot of things you should do to validate, like, is this a good idea or not? So I think the solution to these things is always more communication is better. Talk to more people, get more advice. Don't just make, like for me, I could probably make a lot of decisions for OnSharp unilaterally just because my gut tells me I like it, or my personal opinion tells me I like it, or whatever. But that's not the smartest way to make a business decision. Like, I need to consult my team. We need to consult the rest of the employees. We need to talk to customers. I think a lot of businesses forget to talk to the customer.
Yeah.
And I think you would find out if you talk to enough of your customers that maybe this is not the best idea and we should reconsider this. So
yeah, I really like what you said there about just ask one question: what could go wrong? You're gonna have a big giveaway promotion. It's gonna drive a lot of traffic to your store or drive a lot of leads online. Okay, what could go wrong? Like, just ask that question, list out the 4 or 5 things, and then plan for them. Plan to, 1, to avoid them, and then 2, okay, what are we gonna do if this happens? And that's really easy to really kind of think through. Okay, what are the steps that a customer goes through to engage with us, and where can that go off the rails? Mm-hmm. So just one question I think is really important. And then 2, I think brands need to remember, like, your brand is what people think about you. That's your brand. And so many times I think companies don't realize why people like them. And then they go off and they do something that is completely against that.
Yeah, they start going away from what the brand's known for.
Right.
And they start losing the loyalty that they've built. And yes, I mean, I think you have to understand what you stand for as a brand. You have to understand your culture. I think another thing is you got to do things that align with your culture and what you stand for. And sometimes businesses will make decisions that you should be able to look at that and say, man, that really does not align with with what we stand for, and we should never make that decision. And it. Let's be honest, we're all going to make mistakes. Like, I don't think any business is perfect. And I think part of it too is, if you make a bad decision, like, how quickly do you correct it? Do you get back on course? Are you willing to be apologetic, or do you try to ignore it and hide from it? And I think hiding from a bad decision is like the worst thing you can do. So you got to just, I'm in the sports card world too, and there's a grading company called Beckett, and they came out with a whole new design of their graded card slab and what the label looked like, and they were changing their grading scale. They were making a ton of decisions, and everyone hated it, and they got a ton of bad press. And I'm not sure what their decision process was, but it sure felt like a small group of people just unilaterally decided to do something and then start kind of like sneaking it out to the market, and it just did not go well. So again, it all goes back to proper communication and making sure you get enough data to know that this is a good decision, and then gut checking it with your core values and what you stand for.
And there should be ways to test the waters on some of these things.
Oh, for
too.
sure.
Yeah, I think the bigger the decision. Now, there's just small things. Sometimes you can, this will be a nice little perk, and then it comes across tone deaf, or it's not really nice. It's very cheap. It cheapens your brand. For example, if you're have something you're selling that it's a $1,000 a week hotel stay at a resort, and they like, hey, here's a free 1 water bottle. Like, that doesn't do anything for you. There's little missteps like that, and then there's changes to logo, changes to services, offerings, product line, all that stuff. You need to test the waters on that, and you need to get in front of some subsegment of your audience, your client list, and see what is the reaction to this before you do this big expensive rollout.
Yeah, it does not have to be all or nothing. I mean, you see it all the time. Big box stores will test certain products in a subset of stores to see if customers want the product. They'll test changes of the way they display things, or maybe the way they organize the store. I'm sure before Walmart redoes the whole store, they probably do some tests in some of their other stores to see if the customers like the remodel. Piloting is a huge thing. And in the software world, we work with a lot of companies that are rolling out new systems to their customers or their partners or their employees, whatever it is. And a lot of times, we're always encouraging them to pilot some of this stuff, whether it's a whole new system or it's just new features. Like, you can pilot things to a subset of people, create a test group, even telling them, hey, you're part of a test group, we're piloting something. people appreciate that. They appreciate knowing, hey, you're trying to make it better for me. I'm gonna have a chance to give you feedback, and do it as a pilot. And a lot of companies, when they fumble, they don't either want to spend the time, money, or they just don't think it's necessary to do the pilot. They think, oh, we got it, we're good, and then they don't realize a big mistake they're making until it's too late.
Yeah. So like we said, you can't avoid every error, but if with a little bit more thought and process put in place, companies and brands can avoid really causing a little bit of a PR disaster for them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when we come back on the other side of this break, we're going to look at the dangers of having one person who knows everything about a particular process or application in your company. We'll be right back. Well, welcome back. Continuing our conversation about, just things that matter for the business owner, for the entrepreneur, for just business-minded folks. And, you've been a business leader for quite some time, so it's great to have a great employee. They're reliable, dependable. You can just trust them to get this done. But when there's a single person that knows a process, a piece of software, aspect of your customer service, when there's that just one person, that can actually be a problem, can't it?
Yeah, big problem. Yeah, it's everyone's got it. I don't know. I mean, there can't be many businesses that don't get into that situation at some point. And a lot of times I don't think it happens intentionally. I just think it happens slowly over time. I think people, when you know that there's someone who can just solve that for you, it's easier to just go to them. And then when they're doing something for you, they're like, oh, it's easy. I'm just going to do it. I'm not going to document what I'm doing. It's like, I don't want to call it laziness per se, but like there's just a fluidity when you just do things and you remember, and again, it's easier to just, I'm just going to do it myself versus like I'm going to train someone else, or I'm going to write down a process, because we're not always thinking like that. We're not thinking about, well, what if I wasn't here tomorrow? So every business, I think, gets into that point with one or more employees where you would look and say, man, we have a pretty big single point of failure right here. If we lost this person, or if something happened to them, the business would really suffer. Sometimes too, you have employees that they like the job security of being the only one that knows how to do something. And so they're maybe going to resist documentation or training and whatnot. But as a business leader, you have to recognize when you have those single points of failure in the business, and you have to do something about it. You can't let it be okay. You have to get in there, whether the employee is resisting it or not, or whatever your situation is. You have to methodically get in and recognize the elephant in the room and systematically solve it. Yeah,
we talked about last time on the show, just mentioned some marketing methods that we do. We do a lot of trade shows, and one of the things that resonates at every trade show for OnSharp, we're talking to people about custom software development and the importance of getting things up to date and not being stuck in old systems and conversations like that. The thing that resonates each and every time is, there's always one guy in the company, and it's Steve, and Steve is the only one who knows how to update the program that runs the entire company. It is mission critical piece of software, and he built it 30 years ago. No one else can update it. No one else can fix it. No one can maintain it. No one can use it. And if Steve retires or gets hit by a bus, the company's going under, and everybody knows it. And they laugh, they chuckle, like, our Steve's name is Greg or whatever. Instantly resonates, because it happens at all these companies, and they know it's a problem, and they just kind of ride it out until it's an emergency. So how can a company address that? Like, first off, what's a warning sign that you maybe have a one-person bottleneck in your company?
Well, yeah, many warning signs. I mean, number one is that person is a bottleneck. You always find yourself saying, oh, go ask so-and-so, they know. So like when you hear that happening, that's a problem. A person who can never take vacation.
Right.
They're always feel like they're tied to the office, or when they're on vacation, they can't put their phone down. People being stressed out, maxed out, burned out, come into your office crying, threatening to quit. I mean, there's a lot of warning signs of we got too much relying on one person here.
Yeah. And I think when that person, might not even be coming from them. They might not be saying, hey, I'm super stressed, overloaded. It might just be something you observe. This person goes to a funeral, vacation, sick, whatever,
right.
and things cannot get done until they get back.
Right. The business can't operate properly, or the business slows down, or you have to literally tell the customer, oh, you're going to have to wait till so-and-so gets back on Monday.
Right. There's no redundancy. There's no one else that, like a Navy ship, they always say, like, the sailors know how to do all the roles. It's super important when you're in a rectangle in the ocean. Like you need to know how to do all of these things, even if that's not your job. If you don't have anybody else that can step in, you've got yourself a real problem. So how can you start to address that? And you already touched on they might resist it because they like to be, I hold all these keys, can't get rid of me, I got all the keys. Let's take that out of the equation. You might make them a little bit concerned if you can be like, hey, you're doing a great job here. I'd like you to, start documenting everything you do, and maybe even automate it and train this person on what you do too. They might start getting the wrong idea. We don't want to give a great employee a reason to feel like they're going to be out the door, a reason to jump ship. We want to encourage them, but also solve some of these issues of the bottleneck.
Yeah. So sorry, I'm clearing my throat too much. You have to frame it as recognition, not replacements. I mean, they need to understand like, hey, you're doing an amazing job. We recognize how hard you're working. We're trying to, you're ultimately trying to solve issues in the business. So you're trying to solve issues for them. Hey, you can never take vacation. You're stressed out. You got way too much work on your plate. As a business, like we have these customer service problems when you're gone, or no one else, whenever anyone else has to do what you're trying to do, things suffer, things don't get done right. The more you can tie it to the bigger picture of the business, I think most people will understand, like, yeah, I see where you're coming from. And to show them like, hey, the business, like whether it's your role or anyone else's role, like it's just not healthy in the business for us to have you as this single point of failure that if you're not here, no one knows what to do.
Right.
The business suffers. We can't grow. Again, you're stressed out. You're never taking vacation. There's so many reasons. I think if you frame it properly like that, I think they'll understand and they'll be part of it. And then I think it's okay to reward them too. I think it's okay to, whether you have to provide extra compensation or do something to be like, hey, we want you to help us document this process, help us do these things, help us grow the business to the next level. Hey, it might even mean a promotion for you. It might even mean you can go start doing things that you've always dreamed that you could do if you can help us put you in a position where other people can do some of these tasks that you're doing too. So there's a lot of great benefits to tackling these issues. It doesn't have to be a negative thing for the person that you're trying to work on this with.
Yeah, and in terms of, there might be little small things you can fix too. I mean, you think in terms of customer service, they're out of pocket for one reason or another. If those emails only go to one person, you got a problem. Like there needs to be a role email account that can go to more than one person. I've had it, and we've fixed it as we've discovered it along the way, but needing to log into some social media platform or whatever, and there's two-factor authentication, and it's not my cell phone on there, and it's sending these texts, these codes to somebody on the team, making sure little things like that get taken care of. So if one individual is unreachable for one reason or another,
yeah, and a lot of
you're
times
not losing access to stuff.
Yeah, and a lot of times in a business, we don't set things up properly. So like in a situation like that, everyone's got their own user account, but for some reason, when so-and-so set it up, it was all tied to their email address or whatever. Sometimes you just got to fix some of those things. Like, oh, we need to make this so that more than just you have a login and, we're not sharing logins. And like, again, you have to say, it's almost like the last conversation we had, like what could go wrong? And we have to like contingency plan for that.
Yep.
So what, again, what would happen if you didn't show up tomorrow? Oh, we wouldn't know how to log in here and we wouldn't know how to get to this information. And like that's how you can start to prioritize, okay, what does solving this actually look like? What are the steps we have to break down to actually get to where this business can truly run a process, not just have Bob on the team and Bob's the process and everything's up in Bob's head and nobody else knows what the heck's going on.
Yeah. And in the last segment, we talked about, sometimes when you've got these big nebulous tasks and projects, it's hard to get started. This sounds like one of those. So if you got a rock star employee who does have all the keys and all the institutional knowledge of the system and process and customer and reporting and workflows is just in somebody's head, where do you even start to document and overcome this issue?
Yeah, I think there's two main areas. Like I would start with what are the critical processes or things that person does that if they couldn't do them, it would cause a ton of problems in the business. Because there might be things they do that, they're the only one that does it, but there's not a lot of risk. There's not like a ton of downside if it doesn't get done on time or doesn't get done correctly. So go figure out what critical processes that person's involved in and start documenting those first. And then number two, anything that's customer specific. Like do they have do they have unique relationships with certain customers and they're the only one that knows certain things about the customer, or the customer feels like, the customer always calls in and asks for that person. I mean, that is going to happen in a relationship with a customer, but like you have to be able to continue to serve the customer effectively, even if that person is not there. So again, critical business processes, and then anything that is customer specific, especially for key customers that you don't want to lose.
Yeah. And it just reminds me once again how important communication is with that, especially with that particular employee. Again, they're not doing anything bad. They're really, really good at their job. But there can be a risk associated with that. So just communicating well of, hey, we're not trying to replace you. You're not in trouble, but we need to make sure that these things are possible to operate in your absence. So you can take a vacation, or if you are sick, or if you retire.
And it's particularly important in IT. Like you mentioned, there are many businesses out there that can't afford to have a big IT department. So they literally have one guy or gal that is IT.
Yep.
And that person is the admin, has all the admin accounts, has to do the software development, has to manage the email, manage the network. Like they are such a critical person in that organization. And that is a monstrous risk point, place in a lot of businesses. So like IT is a challenging place because it's hard to have a big IT team in a lot of these smaller businesses. So that's where sometimes you can partner with an outside party to kind of be your fill-in, and they also know how to access the systems and do certain things, but you don't have to add another full-time head on the team. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, it's a good spot to land the plane on this part of the conversation. If you do find yourself with that problem, especially with IT, talk to OnSharp. We can help you build new software that overcomes some of that bottleneck issues that you might be having. When we come back on the other side of the break, we're going to talk about when growth actually becomes a problem in your business and what to do about it. We'll be right back for the Business Blueprint. Welcome back to the Business Blueprint. The whole show is really always geared towards helping businesses grow, to become stronger, to become more efficient, ultimately to grow that business. Everybody wants to grow their business. But Joe, sometimes there are ways that growth actually can break a business that's running well beforehand. So can you get into that a little bit? How can growth sometimes be a problem?
Yeah, well, when you grow your business, I think the key is that it's going to put stress and pressure on every weakness that you have in your business. So like as you grow, I think that's where you start to really realize like where are we leaking water in the ship, and what's maybe not shored up the way that it should be. And honestly, like running a business with 10 people is a lot different than running a business with 50 or 100 or 500 people. So like things change, processes change, things get more complicated. We always strive to keep things as simple as possible. I mean, as your business grows, you want to simplify as much as you can. But growth is going to flesh out all those things that maybe were not properly figured out, processes that you maybe didn't need before. Now you need them because you've got new roles in the business, or you've got new expectations from the client based on the kind of work you're doing. There's just so many ways that growth just presents new challenges.
I like that mental picture of just kind of seeing where the leaks are. So where do you start to see the leaks? I mean, growing typically isn't going to be an overnight, boom, we just leveled up considerably. And there's some examples of that in the history of businesses, but typically it's gradual. So where do you start seeing some of these leaks, some of the stress that comes from business growth?
Yeah, to me, the two first obvious ones are customer service starts to slip, and quality starts to slip. So you start cutting corners, you're rushing, you don't have enough people. The quality of your work, whether it's product or service, like you're not providing the same experience. And then the experience you can give to the customer just starts to drop because you just can't follow up with everyone. You can't do all the nice little touches that you normally do. Those are kind of the two first things. Other things slip too, like maybe cash gets tight. Cash flow is a tough thing to manage in a business. Just because you have revenue doesn't mean you have cash flow. So a lot of times when you're growing in a company, you got to spend money to grow. So you're buying stuff, you're hiring more people, you're spending more money. And if you're not good at managing your cash, you can get into a pickle pretty quickly. So yeah, those are kind of the main things that I kind of try to keep an eye on. I mean, if you've got good cash flow, you have good customer service, and you put out a good product or service, I think those are kind of the three biggest areas to keep an eye on.
It really kind of relates to the conversation we started the show off with of just earlier on when we were talking about businesses that really kind of step on their own tail and they lose sight of why customers like them in the first place, or they make these unforced errors. And you can kind of see why those compromises sneak in there of, hey, we're really busy now. We don't have the time to offer this level of support that we once did. Or we can't, package this up as well as we would want to because we've got to cut costs here. Or we can't, offer this level of service at that price. We've got to upper prices or lower the service. All these little compromises that come up, all these decision points that you have as a business owner, how can you take the time to actually think through those things rather than constantly just reacting and making these decisions?
Well, I think that comes down to growing with purpose. So like, I don't like just growth for growth's sake. Because I think there's a beauty and a simplicity in running a small, lean and mean and awesome business. Like I don't think that you just need to grow forever with no purpose in mind. So as you're thinking about it, I mean, you need to be communicating with your team and all be in alignment. Like what is the goal? Where are we trying to get to in the next year, 5 years, 10 years, whatever that is? And then you have to be visionary. You have to look ahead. You have to say, okay, well, if we're going to go from 5 million to 10 million in the next 3 years, what are the things that we're going to have to put in place, and when are those things going to have to get put in place? Like, don't just be like, oh, we'll figure it out. Like, let's just keep going, keep selling stuff. We'll keep doing it. Like, if you just keep kind of flying by the seat of your pants, like you're going to run smack into some big problems before you know it. And it's not really that hard to plan out. Again, you just have to decide what your growth trajectory looks like, what you're trying to achieve. And then as a team kind of work through, okay, like at what points then are we going to need to add certain people? Are we going to have to, do different things, invest in different things? And you shouldn't have to sacrifice. You should actually be improving. Like as you grow, you should be improving your profit margins. You should be improving customer service. Like things should hopefully get better. If you're growing and things are getting worse, you should step back a couple steps and get that stuff fixed before you keep going.
Yeah. And as you point out there, like you can choose to set your priorities ahead of time so these decisions are already made. What are the things we will not compromise on? And so when those things come up, if it hinders your growth, if it costs you money to not compromise, to not slack back on something, so be it. At least you've already made that decision, is that this is what we're going to stand for as a brand, as a company. This is how we're going to treat our customers, our employees, whatever else. And at those stages where like, hey, we can't grow unless we do X, Y, or Z, you can just say, okay, I guess we won't grow past that until we can maintain this priority while doing so. Yeah.
Like, do you think Shields would be okay growing if they couldn't continue to greet you when you walk in the door the way they're supposed to and help you find merchandise? No, they would. Those things are part of their brand, right? So I think another thing that can really suffer too is your culture. You have to be careful. Like if you grow too fast, a lot of times growth means hiring more people. And so if you're hiring too fast and you can't realistically bring on that many people, effectively, well, your culture is going to suffer because you're not going to be able to ingrain people into the culture and do that properly. And so there's a lot of moving parts to growth. That's why I say like growth for growth's sake is just not like, I've never looked at OnSharp and said, oh, we have to be, this big of a business or we're a failure. Like it's just at any point along the way, I want to feel good about where we're at.
Yeah. So it's always great to grow as a business. We hope this show helps you to do that. And we will see you next time on the Business Blueprint.
Thanks, Clyde.